Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Real Estate Roundtable presented by Angie Goulet & Associates. We are a real estate team located in the Windsor-Essex County area with RE/MAX Preferred Realty. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing the 2021 March real estate statistics. That's a hard one to say. We'll be discussing that and going over what this market looks like right now. My name is Steve Plays, Team General Manager, and I'd like to welcome Krista Klundert and Fiona McDonald.
Hi, Steve. Thank you.
Awesome. So the stats are out, and the numbers, well, they're, I guess, what you might expect considering how busy it's been. But what's your month been like, ladies?
Personally, I actually slowed down a little bit for March, but on purpose because January and February were so nuts. So I made a point of taking a little bit of time off, just a few days here and there, just to not go crazy because it's been crazy. But no, it's still super strong. It's every single day. It's stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would echo the same. It's been a zoo. Like Krista and I talked about 3 weeks ago. We chit-chat all the time. And it was like, my gosh, I got spring market burnout and it's February or it's March, right? It's like, we got to do something about this. But yeah, there's just, everybody's excited about the market, as are we. Every single day I wake up and look at different numbers and it blows my mind. And what seemed crazy yesterday, today is like, well, of course that's what they're getting. You know, it's just like very, very, it's constantly changing anyways. Yeah, we're learning every day.
Yeah, for
definitely. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump right into the stats. I'm going to put them up on the screen here, and we can, here we go. And here we go. So those are some pretty hefty numbers. Let's dissect this, and I guess we'll start with average sale price at $531,805 compared to a year ago, March.
Yeah. So, Chris, would you agree with me that like there's a number of factors here? I'm like, yes, the bottom. I don't want to say bottom, but like entry-level homes, the prices have raised significantly, and we can all agree on that. But I'm not saying your entry-level home is necessarily at 531. There's a lot of other factors that come into this number. Would you agree, Krista?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Such as the new builds is what comes to my mind.
Mine too.
Right up. Yes. I mean, a single family detached new build is starting at a minimum of 600, and even that is hard to find, probably closer to 8 to 9, right?
Right.
So that, you are right. Like that is really what is making that number so inflated, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I think that's what's really driving that number up, because it is the average, right? I'd love to see breakdown, and maybe we'll do this for you sometime, is break down certain price categories and see what's going on. As far as how much they're raising per price category, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And now that you brought that up, what would you say is the new starter home, first time buyer price point? I'd love to hear what you think, because it
around $375 for a, Would you agree?
I would have said 350, but I think we are encroaching on that 400. Yeah. And I mean, I hate to bring up the past because no one has a time machine, so we can't go back there anyways. But it used to be 150, Steve. That was back in when we got licensed. But I mean, maybe 99. You could find a cute house. No, I would agree, and I'm glad you say that, because there is still a hope, I don't know if that's the right word, but a hope that those numbers are going to come down and we're still going to find a house for 200,000. It's hard, flat out hard to find something that low. And I think if people are open to thinking outside the box, it still might be achievable. But being realistic, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, it's 350 to 4.
But I think you and I discussed this last time we were on doing stats, maybe a month ago. And it's like, I think we need to continue to reiterate that is like in those entry level, price points, it's time to get creative, right? We need to start thinking outside of the box, just like they have done in other areas that have seen these, I don't want to say inflated, it's such a negative word, these higher price points, right? Creativity, yes. Co-signers, multifamily dwellings, rental opportunities, all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I know we talked about this last month, but we need to reiterate this, that 531 average selling price, not list price, average selling price. Yeah. So that 531 is listed probably at 350 to 375.
Correct.
Right. The 100 over is the norm pretty much that we're seeing across the board today. And even the 150 doesn't turn any heads anymore. And now you're getting into a regular basis, the 200 over asking, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think gone are the days of 100 over, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's worse in other markets, right? There are other markets that are dealing with 300, 400, 500 over asking. So
yeah,
I guess that part of the course nationwide. But so when we're comparing, because this is all compared like year over year, what was March 2020 like, right, Fiona? What is it different then?
Yeah, so,
sorry.
No, that's good. We were just chit-chatting about this right before we went on, actually. And some of the numbers, like the average sales, let me just see. I don't want to talk price point, but sales year to date were up 30% from last March. Like, that's significant, the amount of sales, especially because we know that our supply is so low. But that directly reflects what went on a year ago and last March, right? Everyone went into lockdown. Everybody stood still. The world stood still for a good 2 weeks because that's what it was supposed to be, right? Everybody complied for 2 weeks. I don't care who you are. You complied for a couple of weeks at least. So the whole market went to a standstill, I would say, in March. Started to gain some traction in April. And then come last May, we saw the wheels turning and like this bizarre market that we're in now kind of kickstarted last May when none of us really knew what we were going to see. But yeah, that 30% on sales. Oh, I'm looking at year to date, 38% for March to March.
For sales, yeah, that's a pretty big number.
Yeah, but almost 40% because we didn't do a lot of business last March.
That's exactly it, right? Like we literally sat at home for 2 weeks baking banana bread and watching Tiger King.
It was wonderful.
Lots of Netflix.
I kind of miss it.
Well, I remember it was a confusing time for realtors because we were being told by one association we should stop, like put the brakes on it and not do anything in person anymore. And then a different association is saying, yes, you still can. And then we're trying to figure out where we fit in all this. And you know, some people were working, some people weren't, you know, and we wanted to keep servicing our clients and making sure that they could sell their home or buy if they needed to. So it was a tough, that March was so unknown.
Yeah.
Agreed. So if we're looking at the different price ranges right now, so, I mean, if we take a look at that 300 to 450 range, it's such a big step up from, you know, like what you were just saying, Fiona and Krista, about where the entry level really is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And absolutely. And then the big notable that I noticed was from compared to like last month's stats, for example, and I didn't have them with me, but if we take a look at what's going on in the $1 million range, right, in the over millions,
yeah,
that has really climbed. Like for example, we didn't have anything over 1.4 last month that showed up, and we had 6 in March that were over 1.4 million sales. So when we talked about earlier about new construction, right, it's definitely increasing our average. When you throw a bunch of those $1.4 million sales around, it certainly changes your average price, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're talking new builds, but we're also talking, I think, because all of a sudden we've got a shortage of new builds or it's going to be a longer close date. I'm seeing resale in that million plus range. Well, have we ever seen multiple offers on million plus? And now that's normal. Like
Yes.
in the last couple of weeks, I've seen kind of in the Lakeshore area, I've been watching it because I've been keeping my eye on that. It's normal now, right? And we're seeing prices 200,000 over asking on $1 million listings. So yeah, I think we're going to be seeing that number drive up month to month moving forward too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Now, if we're looking at where the business is happening, of course, the city and surrounding communities like LaSalle and Tecumseh will be the heaviest activity. But there's some of these communities like Amherstburg and Leamington that have quite a bit of activity as well. So when I'm looking at the stats and I'm trying to figure, okay, where's the lowest prices on average happening in March? And it looks like it's Leamington had come in. So Leamington Wheatley area had some, I guess, the lowest average sale prices at $398 and change versus $347 versus other areas that are consistently in the $400 to $500 range. So there seems to be a little more lower price activity happening in Leamington and Wheatley. And then also when we look at the highest price activity, we're looking at like West Lakeshore, happening in around $585, $950 for $586,000 average sale price. Of course, we have a lot of new construction up that way as well. Any thoughts on location in your experiences, ladies, and where you've been doing business lately? Just monitoring competition, right? Are certain areas you found to be a little bit lighter in competition?
No. I've noticed an increase in East Windsor, specifically East Windsor. It used to always be South Windsor, right? You'd have 15, 20 offers on a property. I'm starting to see, and I think we talked about this last month, so I apologize, but starting to see a decrease in numbers in South Windsor, but a huge increase in East Windsor, specifically resale.
Yep. I would agree with that. And yes, like for first-time home buyers, finding like going out, you're still competing, but going a little further from the downtown core or from Windsor proper, there are some deals to be had. You're still going to be competing, but maybe not as competitive, right? Like I think, Chris, that one that you just got your first-time buyers, correct me if I'm wrong, is in the county, right?
We had
200 range.
Yes, Amherstburg. Yeah. And then we had another one that went all the way to Chatham. What has, in my experience, has been on fire lately, and I don't know why, is the town of Essex. Yeah. My gosh. I think I do know why. I think it's because it is the closest town to the city. It is literally 12 minutes from anywhere. But Essex has been doing really well for sellers.
Well, I'm looking at last year's average for Essex in March. It was 302,771 for average sale price, and this year we're at 402,724. So $100,000 increase in average sale price year over year from Essex. So yeah. I think a lot of these smaller communities, what we really have is just such a shortage of inventory. You're often the only house on the market at a given time, right? In certain situations. So depending on what you have. So if we're looking at the 10-year graph, we start to see that spike. And I was surprised to see that it was more linear looking from, or not linear, but a gradual increase starting from 2019. Didn't it feel more like 2020 really exploded? But we're not really seeing that on the graph for 10 years. It's more of that big jump started more 2019, right?
Yes.
Right about here. And and then of course 2015 is when things kind of, that we started dealing with the multiple offers and that sort of thing back in 2015. So it's it's interesting to look at all this data, and of course we're dealing with averages, right? So when we're talking about averages, not everybody's going to have the same experience with how much is my house worth compared to a year ago. It's not the same for everybody, right? It's different, different price points, different locations. How is the home ready to go? Is it turnkey? Does it need renovations? Are you seeing more people that are more willing to do renovations now than before, that don't require the turnkey ready to go home?
Yeah, I think people are becoming, would you agree, Krista, a little more creative?
I do. I also am finding that since people are paying these higher prices, expect it to be a lot more turnkey. So I don't, in my experience, yeah, they're more willing to accept challenges or issues. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And the other thing to consider, I guess, when we're looking at some of these homes that need a little more work is the rising cost of building materials. I just paid $110 for 9 2x4s. So
Wow.
it's it's pretty intense out there in the building material range, and
Yes,
not just
absolutely.
2x4s. I mean, across the board, there's a lot of increases in really everything building material related. So now, one thing I wanted to touch on was, I mean, there's a lot of, if you look at the internet today, you have no idea what to think, because you've got some experts saying we're in a bubble, and that, I hate to use that word, but it keeps coming up, that the market is overheated, and there's a lot of major centers that they have to, they're looking at introducing measures to cool. And then there's other experts that say they believe that it's overheated, but not that they feel we need to introduce any measures. What are your thoughts on where we're at? Just obviously, we're not economists, but what's your personal opinion on where we're headed?
Fiona, go ahead.
So for a long time, what I've said about Windsor-Essex County, people kept on seeing the prices rise and rise and rise, and they're going, oh my gosh, it's a bubble. People have been saying it's a bubble for the last 4 years, 5 years. I don't believe that to be true. I think we were way undervalued in Windsor-Essex County. I think we were a little hidden gem. I think everywhere else in the province had higher, I don't want to say everywhere else, but there were a lot of areas that had kind of the same things to offer or less than we do here in Windsor-Essex County, and we were still priced so low. So we got discovered, people started buying up property here, and lo and behold, prices started to rise, and we're playing catch up with a lot of Southwestern Ontario, right? Like, we are in a hot spot here. We really are. And I don't mean that in
a COVID kind of way.
Yes, exactly. As far as like what we have to offer, we're right across the river from Detroit. We've got the Great Lakes. We've got so much to offer, right? We're close to major cities, all of that kind of stuff. So do I think that we're in a bubble? Possibly now. I don't want to say that, though. I think we're playing catch up. We're still a better deal than most of Southwestern Ontario. We're just playing catch up with the rest of the province. Now, there are measures that they're talking about implementing. My opinion is kind of irrelevant. I do have an opinion on taxing people on selling their primary residence. Maybe my tone just conveyed my opinion, but I'm not going to share it on here.
I think I agree with Fiona. I think too, when I think of bubble, that means it's going to burst and then deflate kind of thing, right? Like come back down. And that's exactly it. We are finally at the prices that we should have been at all this time.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it wasn't not a gradual climb, right? It was like literally overnight over the last 4 years, but overnight. So it's so hard for us to get used to. So I believe, my 2 cents, what will happen, and we as realtors hope it does, is that we will list properties where it will eventually sell, right? So if you're expecting 400, we will list it at 399, right? The guessing game's not going to be there but we can't do that right now because buyer's mentality isn't there yet, which I get, right? But no, I don't think a bubble is the right word for it. But we still have the influx of out-of-town people because we were this little hidden gem that nobody knew about. Do we want to chat about the conversation that's going on with doing auction style bidding?
I was just going to recommend that. I think it's interesting if you watch Australia and places like that, the getting rid of the blind bidding process.
I like the idea. I think it's a great idea. I think at the end of the day, I think sellers might actually do even better because we've all seen an auction, right? And once people are interested and excited, that number just keeps going up and up. I like it. I don't believe OREA will do it, Ontario Real Estate Association, or even Canada, just because they're so set in their ways. But I love the idea. What do you think, Fiona?
I don't know. Like you just said, I feel the same way. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's kind of a neat idea. It gives, because sometimes I have buyers that walk away after writing 10 offers, right? They win one and then they go, did we overpay? We have no idea, right? And so, full disclosure, everybody's seeing what's going on. I do still think the sellers are the ones that will win in it, though. For the exact same reason is now people know that they'll be able to see what's going in. They'll have a chance to compete, but with numbers in front of them, I think it'll still drag prices up.
True.
Yeah.
Well, and I think do we use the word fair? I think we can. I think it's fair. All cards are on the table.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't know if we'll move that direction. Sorry.
Yeah. The preemptive offers for me has just, I know it depends on what side of the transaction you're on. My opinion has always been, my personal opinion has been, we're either waiting or we're not. So I would prefer to, to run it that way if possible. But of course, it's something that you can legally do. And sometimes there's situations where it would definitely benefit the seller. Certain situations, different types of listings, rental properties, potentially, that kind of thing, where that's a useful tool. My own personal opinion is I feel there will be measures introduced, but I don't think they're going to be in the area of introducing taxes on primary residence, even if it's a spread out thing over 5 years or whatever we're reading. But I do think they often try and introduce mortgage and financing measures as way to cool markets. And I think we may start to see that kind of thing. I know in New Zealand, they were doing like 30% down for financing. And then even they're looking at going up to 40%, I guess. So, but the problem is that here, I mean, that would totally impact the first-time buyers, right? Not only are the prices of homes higher, but now they're going to come up with way more down payment.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we'll be on that, but
I think the tax to sellers will just hurt us for inventory even more, right? No one's going to want to sell, right?
Yeah.
And poor flippers and, people that's part of their business. So I don't think that is the answer either.
Yeah. So hard to tell.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I
Good.
I'm definitely not an economist, so I don't know.
Well, that's right. And, I guess we'll roll with whatever they introduce. But I mean, we've always had these scares in the past when they introduced different qualification measures, right? And the stress test and all sorts of things. And, they may have made a difference on a really short-term level, but for the most part, we've always kind of just gotten used to them.
Yes.
And I think we, you even forget about them very quickly after.
Yes.
But I do think, especially for first-time buyers, boy, that first-time buyer land transfer tax credit, based on the number it's designed for, those days are long gone, right? So if you're a first-time buyer, I mean, to qualify for the entire land transfer tax credit, you got to be, in the 400s, and some buyers are having to pay much more than that to get in. So I think we do need adjustments in some areas with regards to what homes are really worth now. So
yeah.
Excellent. Any last minute thoughts before we end this today, ladies?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Next week, I'll be joining our newest agent, Katya Augustin, and we're going to be discussing tiny homes, and something that's interesting to a lot of people, especially if you're an investor today, and you might have a big enough lot, you can meet the qualifications to do an additional rental dwelling on your property. A tiny home might just be the right option for you. And it's kind of new and unknown to a lot of people, so I'm looking forward to exploring that. So hope to see everyone next Thursday. And thank you, ladies, for joining today.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great day.
Fiona.
Have a good one.
Krista.
Bye-bye.